In fact, I will share with you a very, relevant anecdote that in our ice creams team, we call ourselves the happy people. So our WhatsApp group is actually the happy people's team group. When we do workshops for leadership training, etc., we call them joy shops. So it is, I think, happiness at the workplace and being happy and being a whole place at the workplace is really a very core part of the way that our team actually sees itself. So well-being a movement, a change that is not constant. It is a pleasure to come here and speak to you on this, share my thoughts with you on this. So thank you so very much to Business World for giving me the opportunity to do so. The green button? Yes. So I'm Shruti and I work for Hindustan Lever. I head human resources for the South Asia business of foods and refreshments for Unilever. And what I hope to do over the next 8, 9 minutes is really not only share my thoughts on this subject, but also do that through the lens of a little bit of how we've been practicing well-being at HUL, the changing phases of well-being, but equally what actually has stayed constant about well-being and how does that actually inform the well-being in the past, present and future. Now, the last 2 years of the pandemic, it's brought us very intimate to two dialogues, which in corporate speak we are all very familiar with. The first one is the tectonic shift that the pandemic has created in the way that we conceive the work, the workplace, and the workforce. We are all very familiar with this dialogue. The second one is really the massive acceleration that we've seen in digitization, the adoption of digitization, how center digital has become in our life. The third very massive and significant change that we've witnessed uh, at an accelerated pace is the conversation on well-being. Never before has well-being been so center of plate in people strategy, in business strategy, on the minds of people, on the minds of employers, on the minds of leaders. And all of this really means that we have to dig deep as business professionals, as HR professionals, into what really well-being means. At the core of it, it is about a duty of care that each individual has towards themselves, a duty of care that leaders have towards their teams, and a duty of care that an organization has not only to its employees, but to the entire ecosystem in which it operates, the suppliers, the vendors, the partners, and entire ecosystem. And clearly, no, doesn't seem to be. Okay, yeah. And I think the beginning for this well-being, the one thing that I have observed, and I can say this, with my experience in HUL, is that organizations which have had well-being as a part of their DNA, organizations which did not start thinking about well-being when the pandemic hit us, they have been the most resilient and have been able to launch the most comprehensive response to COVID and COVID support as compared to others. And at Unilever and HUL, I think it stems from the ethos of the company. The ethos of the company which is rooted in purpose, because we believe that brands with purpose grow, companies with purpose last, and people with purpose thrive. So at the core of the business, there is purpose. And because of this, what it helps us actually do, this fundamental focus on purposeful and meaningful, and that is the only sustainable way of doing business, is actually what has shaped, not today, not yesterday, but literally over the last 10 plus years, the overall approach and philosophy of well-being at HUL. And it is about holistic well-being, because well-being is not simply about medical benefits, COVID support, medical tests, checkup. Well-being inherently is about how do you enable your employees to be their whole self, to be their happiest self, and to be their healthiest self at the workplace. And therefore, for us, it is really 4 key pillars for well-being. There is physical well-being, which is about being a healthier you, a fitter you. And this starts with an approach. For example, in HUL, what we have running for decades now is what we call a lamp lighter program. Under this program, what we do is we ensure that we have a very strong cadence of regular checkups, but it doesn't end there. It ends with a very detailed engagement one-on-one with the company doctor and the employee on what are the red flags, what are the lifestyle changes, what are the current medical problems, what are the envisaged future problems, and literally a customized individual plan. We track it, then we follow up on it. Sometimes we do name and shame around it. But essentially, it elevates the dialogue and it brings your own physical fitness center of plate, top of mind for each and every employee. Purposeful is something that allows each employee, when you have a purposeful approach to well-being, it is about not just bringing a part of yourself to the workplace. It is about bringing your whole self to the workplace. But for us to do that, we have to spend time reflecting, introspecting on really what are our true internal drivers, what are our intrinsic motivators, what helps us find purpose in our work, and what helps us find purpose in our life. So we've invested a huge amount of time in giving people the time and a psychologically safe space to work in cohorts to really unpeel this for themselves, because we all know it at a subconscious level, but sometimes you need to consciously go through a process of really sort of mapping your life journey. What are the childhood experiences that have shaped your purpose? What really drives you? What makes you tick? How do you show up? And when you do that, you are able to encapsulate for yourself in a sentence or a word or a paragraph what is your purpose. And then you're really able to very consciously seek that in your work life, to be able to manifest that in your work life, and that makes for better well-being. Mental well-being for us is really all about helping people be mindful about the mental energy that they have. And not just be mindful about it. When you're mindful about it, you're also mindful about the impact that you have on others around you, the impact that you have on the energy in the room. And you are able to manage that. And when you are able to manage that, it also helps build resilience, especially during difficult times for business, during difficult socioeconomic changes. So mental well-being is all about being able to manage your energy and to manage and shape the impact that you have on others. And then it is the emotional well-being, which is really about feeling more confident. How do you get yourself in a positive mental space? A lot of the support that employees get through an EAP, counseling, being sort of open to have a dialogue at the workplace on mental well-being, that itself is something which sits at the core on this. And I believe very, very strongly that it is this focus on well-being, holistic well-being, linked to purpose, and a consistent focus on this, not yesterday, but over the last many years, that led us to really mount what really counted in the last 2 years, which was a massive, huge-scale COVID response. It spanned across multiple spectrums, whether it was medical infrastructure, whether it was policies, or whether it was how leaders really drove well-being at the workplace during the time of the pandemic. But beyond all of this, most organizations did this. Some did it faster, some did it slower, some could do some of it. Some were constrained by money, some were constrained by resources, but everybody did some shape and form of this. But essentially what stood out was the 360 approach of it. It is not just about, medical support. It is not just about policy. It is not just about leaders doing a call. It is about doing all of it. And doing all of this not just for employees, but through the entire ecosystem. So whether it was the 150 plus volunteers who stepped up as nightingales to support employees and connect them with medical resources, or whether it was an industry-changing policy on domestic abuse, which we launched, and we made it open for anybody to replicate, because it is during pandemic that we see a spike in domestic abuse, with women spending more time at home, with families all cloistered together. Or whether it was how leaders actually led it from the front and bringing into focus the entire philosophy of servant leadership, leading with empathy. something that, all of the leaders were trained to put their arms around, embrace, and live. So that is really, the thought that I want to leave around this table, which is that when you are consistently focusing on well-being, you are able to, in times when you need to call upon it, be very resilient. And the future of well-being, already we are seeing that it is going to be different in the world of hybrid. How do you manage an employee well-being when you are really wanting to keep the benefits of remote working that you got unlocked, but through hybrid working, how do you maintain the well-being? How do you manage well-being when you have workforce that is now fully remote? How do you manage well-being in that context? How do you manage well-being when your employees are not the traditional way that you describe employees, but a large mix of a gig workforce and a full-time employment workforce? How do you define well-being when you are now working in a multi-generation workforce? You have, the concept of YOLO, you live only once, competing with still people who, are of a generation where work-life balance, well-being means something completely different to them. So really, it's incumbent upon us. And therefore, what well-being means and how it manifests will change. But the fact that well-being has to be center of our agenda, that doesn't change. And I want to end with a video. It's a short video, and it really sort of speaks to the piece about embracing the context. And I'm going to play a video that we made on our efforts for solving domestic abuse, which really went up to a spike, and it shows that, it really highlights what each one of us need to bring forward as duty of care. That's at the core of well-being. We have a duty of care. And just want to play this video for all of you, and then we'll end with that. Thank you very much.